2. Yo, what's up, y'all? You're now tuned into an early edition of the podcast with Tigmatic. And it's your boy, y'all. Listen, my guest is here today, and y'all see whose name it is. She is a pioneer out here. She's an activist, an educator, and a demonstrator. So when we get to it, you'll be excited to hear what she has to say. But in the meantime, in between time, y'all know the vibes, the intro and the videos. So here we go. Let's get it.
Everybody do attack me with the pop.
Y'all tune into a pop podcast. And guess what? There's an episode of me on
and you are tuned into the Pot Podcast.
And with the Pot Podcast with my boy Tigmatic. You hear me? It's going down.
To follow the Pot Podcast with Tigmatic.
That's that number one.
That's that number one.
Hey G, what's up? Hey, I'm good. You see that going?
I really want you. I really want you. I really want your pepper soup. You caught my attention. My eyes on you, baby. Beautiful distraction. With me, I like it slow. I salute to the way that you're shaking your boots. Hope you're catching the shot that they shoot. So what's the deal? If you show me mind the mind, calling you from 6 to 9. Cause now you ain't in my mind, spoiling you from time to time. Give you stroking bind to bind, calling you from 6 to 9. Cause now you ain't in my mind, spoiling you from time to time. Everyone say, I got to let you go. But how can I leave without my heartbeat? No. Everyone say, I got to let you go. I see without my ID. I really want you. I really want to be with you. Yeah. I really want you. I really want your pepper soup. I really want you. I really want to be with you. Yeah. I really want you. I really want your pepper soup. Pepper soup. Yeah. I really want your pepper soup. Pepper soup. Yeah. I really want your pepper soup, yeah. Right side front seat on my motor. Ride with you, my name no be solo. Sugar bend it's not here, my polo. Both my side mirror, oh no. Oh, we are getting over no sweet, oh. Monday, walk out in the sheet, oh. Why, pepper soup, eh. My belly stop, I don't need, oh. Everyone say, I got to let you go. But how can I leave without my hearty? No. Everyone say, I got to let you go. But how can I see without my ID? I really want you. I really want to be with you. Yeah. I really want you. I really want your pepper soup. I really want you. I really want to be with you. Yeah. I really want you. I really want your pepper soup. Pepper soup. Yeah. I really want your pepper soup. I really want your pepper soup. I really want you. I really want you. I really want you. Pepper soup, baby.
V-Ray's going too hard though. Don't cry, dry your eyes.
move them. Man, I'm many talents, I just try my best to use them. Gotta feel my purpose, if I don't, my life was useless. This a different type of music, but who else will built to do this? I just wait on God and let him use me. When faith get low and trust get hard, don't cry, wait on God, on God, on God, on God.
Don't cry, dry your eyes till you wait on God. When faith is low and trust is hard till you wait on God.
Just wait on God.
Made up my mind that I can't be outside his will. That I'ma do nothing but trust him despite how I feel. When your emotions don't change your confession, it's real. You gotta keep your faith strong. That's the simplest I know. Guard what you look at and what you let between your ears. God good, his showers of comfort outweigh all your stress. It's true, I had to share this good news to all my peers. Your timing, not his timing, and the spirit I heard him say. If he didn't do it, no, it's not because it couldn't be done. You just weren't mature enough to handle it. And he ain't just gonna bless anyone. Wait on God. Don't cry, dry your eyes till you wait on God. When faith is low and trust is hard till you wait on God.
All right, folks. So, like I said, my guest is here, and she is an educator, an activist, and she gonna keep it real like she always does. You've seen her everywhere. So, without further ado, I give you the one, the only Miss Jane Elliott. You can go ahead and click your cam, Miss Jane. Miss Jane, turn
First
your
you
camera
told me-
back on.
Well, I'd love to if I could. Well, just a minute now. Hold the horses. Turn the camera on. There, you got it.
Hey. There you are.
Yeah, I sure am.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right. So why don't you give yourself an introduction to my guest for those that never saw you before, which I find that hard to believe because you've been around for a while and you've been, over everywhere, every social media platform that you could think of. There's multiple clips of you. So why don't you give yourself an introduction?
Well, the only reason you're watching me and the only reason I've been everywhere is because on the day after Martin Luther King Jr. was killed, I put my blue-eyed, brown-eyed, all-white children in all Christian Riceville, Iowa, through an exercise in discrimination based on the color of their eyes in order for them to know, to understand why Martin Luther King Jr. was angry. And what we all learned that day was more than I wanted to know and more than they had ever learned. And it was absolutely terrifying what I found out. But some of what I found out was extremely hopeful. I separated them according to the color of their eyes. I put brown-eyed people on top the first day because most of the students in the room were blue-eyed, and so am I. And I didn't want the power to be with the power to be with the leader that day. So the brown-eyed people were on top. And all of a sudden, I found out how it feels to have the wrong color skin or to have a wrong physical characteristic over which we have no power and to be judged by it. I told my students that brown-eyed people are smarter than blue-eyed people. They're cleaner than blue-eyed people. They're more intelligent than blue-eyed people. And at that point, and this, I was teaching third graders, 9-year-olds. At that point, little brown-eyed Debbie sitting in the front row looked up at me and said, "How come you're the teacher here if you got them blue eyes?" And for just an instant, and I've never felt like this about a child before, and only one since, I could see myself. My first thought was, well, you little shit. And I've never felt like that about a child.
We can't curse, Miss Jane. We can't curse. We can't curse.
That isn't cursing. You need to understand that isn't cursing. I'm sorry. Cursing is taking the name of the Lord thy God in vain. I don't do that. I do use words that are objectionable, but it is a word that if you're raised on a farm, that's not a bad word. It's absolutely essential. Okay.
I hear
Now,
that. But continue.
I was angry at that student immediately, and then one of the blue-eyed people in the back row stood. Well, you know what she's like. It isn't because of her eyes. She's always been like that, and there was my Uncle Tom. He was defending me because he was like me, and if I was bad, then he was bad too. It was just amazing what I learned in that instance.
Oh man, that's amazing. So
Hey, the thing that was most amazing about it was that was on Friday. I hated to go home because I hated to come back to school on Monday because the blue-eyed people were going to be on the top, and I had heard the blue-eyed boys in the boys' room saying what they're going to do with those brownies when the blueies got on top, and they knew they were going to on Monday. So on Monday, I went back into the classroom. I put the armbands on the other people. I made the blue-eyed people superior, criticized the brown-eyed people, and waited for the blue eyes to get even. They didn't get even. And I said to them, then we did the exercise. And after it was done, kids, it's all over. Go home and we're going to get back to normal tomorrow. So on Tuesday, they had to write a 4-paragraph composition telling who Martin Luther King Jr. was, how the child fell on Friday, how the child fell on Monday, and what discrimination is. When they had gotten done writing, we got in the magic circle. And in the magic circle, you can say whatever you need to deal with, and we deal with it. And I said to those kids, you blue-eyed boys said you were going to get even with the brownies when you got on top. You didn't get even. Why didn't you get even? And that year and every year after that, when I did that exercise, those kids said, because we found out how it felt to be on the bottom, and we didn't want to make anybody feel as bad as we did when we were on the bottom. Now, in this country today, we have a whole lot of pale, stale males who are scared to death that that people of color are going to want to get even with them when people of color get the majority in this country. We are already the majority in this country. I think that people that we have called black or yellow or red don't want to get even with white people, what we call white people. I think they want to get equity. I think they want to get equitable treatment under the law, and I think they are not going to treat us the way we have treated them because we know the chaos that causes in a society.
I agree.
That makes sense to you?
Say that again.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it makes plenty of sense to me. And
wait, do you want to get even with all so-called white people?
No, you actually hit the nail on the coffin for me. And I think for those of the that's called the black race, us of the black race, we just want equity. We want equal treatment. We want fair rights. And we want to be able to have something and own something. That's the biggest priority for majority of us speaking. So here's my question, my first question to you. What inspired you to create the Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes exercise? And did you participate? Did you anticipate the level of impact it would have?
I was born in 1933 when Adolf Hitler and Franklin Roosevelt came to power in their respective countries. And I learned the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise from Adolf Hitler because one of the ways he decided who went into the gas chamber or to the work camps or who were killed was eye color. If you had a good German name, but you had brown eyes, they thought you might be a Jewish person who was trying to pass, and they either killed you, raped you, or threw you into the gas chamber, or threw you into a ditch and then shot you. So I knew that there was a time in my life, the first 12 years of my life, people were in Germany and all over Europe were being judged on the basis of the color of their eyes. So when Martin Luther King Jr. was killed, I realized that what I was doing was not new. It had been done before, and it is being done today. And it is going to get worse now. It's going to get worse now instead of better, because we have as our chief executive now a man whose name is an acronym of these 4 words: tyrannical, racist, unwise, misogynistic, and pig. Now you put the first letter of each of those words together and you get the word Trump. Yeah. And I'm angry because right now, I am watching this country go through what my dad was angry about from 1933 until 1945. He was furious about what Adolf Hitler was doing. And what T-Rump is doing right now is exactly what Adolf Hitler was doing. And the reason the reason they are the same is because Mr. Trump has in his bedside table, and has had for years, a book entitled something like The New World Order. And the book is written by Adolf Hitler.
Right. And I'm familiar with that. So you think the New World Order is upon us, basically, from your perspective?
I think that's what he wants, to be honest, because he doesn't know any better. He is unwise. He doesn't realize what he's doing, because the only color that's important to him is green, which is the color of our money. And
Right.
he wants to be very, very certain. Well, let's not talk about him. Let's talk about something sensible.
Yes. I agree with you there, ma'am. So I'm glad that you're here. This is an honor, first of all. I have to say this. I said it to you off the air, but I have to say it again. This is an honor to be able to have a conversation with you, because like I said, I've been watching you for years. And to see and hear you say the exact things that you usually say is awesome. But not only that, not only did you talk about it, you be about it. And that within itself is a major feat in my eyes. So I salute you, and I thank you for all the work that you've done to try to wake people up, because people need that. People need to be woken up. They need to be, understanding, and they need to overstand what's really going on.
They need to be educated instead
Absolutely.
of indoctrinated. I'm an educator. The word educator comes from the root "dus," which means lead, the prefix "e," which means out, the suffix "ate," which means the act of, and the suffix "or," which means one who does. An educator is one who is engaged in the act of leading people out of ignorance. Now, the number one ignorance in the United States of America is the ignorance of believing in the myth of skin color, and of 5 different skin colors, and skin color being the thing on which you place your judgment of another person. This makes no sense at all.
Right.
If people understood where the words white and black concerning skin color came from, they'd stop believing it. Do you know where they came from?
That was going to be my question. Break it down a bit. Tell the people where that came from, and how it became systemically used in this country.
During the Spanish Inquisition, a vicar, a powerful man in the Catholic Church, decided that he was going to turn everybody into Catholics, all Christians into Catholics, and he was going to kill those who were not Christians. He had killed about 2,000 people in the most horrid ways that you can dream of, because he thought that none of them were Christian. He had killed over 2,000 people, and somebody made him aware that many of the people he had killed were Christians. And then he realized you can't tell what a person's religion is by looking at them. So he had to come up with a way to decide whether a person deserved to live or to die. And he decided to use skin color. Now, all the people in that country and all the people in the world were shades of brown. But he decided to call the lighter brown people white, because white is the color of purity and goodness. He decided to call the darker skinned people black, because black is the color of savagery and evil. Now think about that. He put us at polar opposites. Those folks who are perfect are lightest brown, and those people who are vicious and horrible are darkest brown. He made it all right. In fact, not only acceptable, but a good thing to do for good people who were good and pure because they're white, to kill those who are black because they're savage and evil. Now, you've got kids who believe that today because of the way we behave in the United States of America.
Absolutely.
That's where those 2 words came from. And people say to me, this has been going on forever. No, it hasn't. The word race, to mean a specific group of people, came out of France in 1580. 1580, and when we began to talk about a separate group of people as being a different race. Make no mistake about this. There's only one race of people on the face of the earth. That's the human race, and we are all members of it. There is only one skin color on the face of the earth, and that's shades of brown. And if you want to know how many shades of brown there are, go to the thesaurus. And if you go to the large one, there are about 180 synonyms for brown in that thesaurus. Now, you can pick out one of those for the color of your skin. Every one of us can. I would have to pick out beige because that's what my skin is. My hair is white. My skin is not.
That's right.
The whole thing was built. The whole thing was built on a lie. And of course, if you're a college instructor, you call it a social construct. No, race is not a social construct. It's a damned lie.
Right. I think that's where a lot of us, brown people, we started saying things like they have the complexion for the protection for the collection. Paul Mooney made that very popular, though. But it's kind of true, because of that construct and the way they did that, they made it so that this specific color was the superior race or, whatever. But
well, wait, if you're going to call you a person, if you're going to call you colorful, then you have to call me colorless. Now, do you think people who call themselves white are going to want to be called colorless?
No.
Of course not. We would protest that loudly and at length because that is insulting, and we don't. That's a negative. We have been not misled, because this isn't a myth; it's a lie. We have been misled for less than 500 years. It's time to get over it.
That's right. That's right. So here's my next question. Looking back, what was the most surprising reaction you ever received from a participant in your class?
Oh, the little girl who said, "How come you're the teacher here if you got them blue eyes?" And then when I pulled down the map, the roller map, and the ring slipped off my thumb and the map went around the ruler, I said, "Well, I've done it again." And that little girl said, "Well, what do you expect? You've got blue eyes, haven't you?" I couldn't believe, number one, that she would treat me that way. I didn't believe that she had the guts to do that to the teacher. It was absolutely amazing. I had no idea up to that point. I had no idea about how easy racism is and how quickly you can instill it in students of any age.
So let's talk about consequences. Have you ever faced personal or professional consequences for your activism, and how did you handle them?
Only every day. Only every day.
Let's talk about it.
Well, every day after I did that exercise, I found out how Typhoid Mary must have felt. I could walk through the halls of that school building around people who had been my peers for years and not have a single person speak to me. My children were beaten and spit on and isolated because they had an N-word lover for a mother. My parents lost their business. And after my father died, my mother kicked me out of the family because I had ruined her reputation in that community with that eye color thing. It is something that I lived with every single day. And for the first few weeks after it happened, I would go up to the place where my parents lived and I'd tell them what was going on. And my father would say, "Put your shoulders back, your head up, and smile a lot." And so these will wonder what the hell you've been up to. So that's what I did. And that's what I've been doing for the last 57 years, because I think I'm right. I know I'm right. I know that you teach racism, and racism is something you aren't born with. You aren't born a racist. You learn to be a racist.
That's right.
Anything you learn, anything you make, you can destroy. Anything you create, you can destroy. We created racism in this country, and we can destroy it if we decided to educate instead of indoctrinating. It's time for us to start teaching the truth. In my classroom, I taught the 3 R's, not of reading, writing, and arithmetic, because only one of those begins with R. Writing begins with a W, and arithmetic begins with an A. But teachers will say to me, "I teach the 3 R's," and I say, "What are they? Reading, writing?" Well, wait a minute. Now think about that. And then they get angry because they've used that phrase all their lives, and they thought it made sense. The 3 R's that we've got to start teaching in schools in this country are rights, respect, and responsibility. Every student and every teacher and every counselor and every administrator and every janitor and every person on that campus has rights, and those rights are to be respected. And if you don't respect those rights, you ought to be held responsible for not doing that. That's what education ought to be about first. Boys and girls, here are the 3 R's: rights, respect, and responsibility. And if you don't respect the rights of another student, I will hold you responsible, and you will not like me at all. You need to know that. I think it's time educators could educate instead of indoctrinating.
So what do you believe has changed in terms of racial attitudes since you started your work?
I'll say
And
that
as you
again.
continue,
What do I believe? What?
what do you believe has changed in terms of racial attitudes since you started your work and continue your work?
I thought when Barack Obama was running for the presidency and got elected and reelected, I thought we're on our way out. And I remember Whoopi Goldberg said, now I can put my suitcase down. I don't have to plan on leaving this country anymore. And I thought
Right.
we were on our way out. I was wrong because the racists went underground, tried to keep him from being successful, tried to keep him from being reelected. He got reelected. He was successful, but only minimally because people who aren't white, who think they're white, had decided that he wasn't going to succeed. He succeeded in spite of them. But I thought we were on our way out. No, it got worse after Barack Obama was elected because that's when pale-faced people began to get really frightened about what might happen to them if either a woman or a person of color became the president of the United States. So they, in order to keep that from happening, voted for a fool because
That's right.
he appealed to their racist, sexist, ageist, homophobic, anti-Semitic behaviors. He was right in their eyes because he was white. They don't realize, number one, that he isn't white, and neither is anybody else. They need to realize that he's a shade of brown, just like all the rest of us. But we have convinced ourselves that there are two important colors in skin, black and white, and neither of them exist as a skin color. I think we're in worse shape now today than we were before Martin Luther King Jr. was killed. Because now the leader of all of us is replacing in the government, in the federal employees, all those who were opposed to what happened on January 6th. And he is replacing those with people who will follow his lead. We cannot afford to have people who will follow his lead, leading this country. This we cannot afford. This we must absolutely fight with every fiber of our being, because if we don't, we are right now on the verge of losing our democracy. And that is exactly what he intends to bring about.
I agree with you there. So what do you believe has changed? What do you think still needs to change? And what gives you hope for the future?
Okay, here's the one thing I think we can do. Everybody can do this. Everybody can do this. Learn and recite and understand the preamble to the Constitution of the United States. Do you remember it? Probably not, but you were supposed to learn
Some of it, not all of it, to be honest.
Let me read
It's
this to
been
you.
many years since I looked at the Constitution.
Wait a minute, you have to hear this. We, the people of the United States, it doesn't say the people of America. It says the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, in other words, to make this place a better place, establish justice. How do you establish justice when you have been convicted of 34 felonies and you are bringing out of jail those who are convicted of several crimes? How do you swear that you will establish justice? Ensure domestic tranquility. Ensure domestic tranquility after you have incited a group to riot and have an insurrection. Provide for the common defense. We don't provide for the common defense if you're taking your military and putting them on the southern border of the United States to keep those brown-skinned people out. Secure the blessings of liberty. Provide the general welfare. He wants to take away Social Security and child welfare. He wants to take away all those things that make life better for people who can't afford the kinds of things that he can. He isn't going to promote the general welfare. He's going to promote the Trump welfare. Secure the blessings of liberty on ourselves and our posterity. You cannot secure the blessings of liberty on ourselves if you are going to be thrown out of the country because you are in here supposedly illegally. And if you're going to do away with birthright, what's the word I want? If you can't
Citizenship.
Right, birthright citizenship. You can't do away with birthright citizenship and secure the blessings of liberty on ourselves, and certainly not on our posterity, when you're not going to let those children whose parents who were born in this country, of parents who came here as immigrants, you're going to throw their parents out of this country and leave those children alone? Do you really think this man is following the principles that are stated in the preamble to the Constitution of the United States? He has violated every single one of them.
Absolutely. Well, I also know that for a fact that he said many times before he became president, that he wanted to change the Constitution.
Yes, he
And
wants to.
I thought it was morally insane, to be honest.
That's right. So now there are people who want to put the 10 Commandments on the walls of every classroom. No, put the preamble to the United States on the walls of classrooms and make sure from the 5th grade on that every child in the room learns what those principles are, and then can say when they come in the morning, hey, he violated another principle in the preamble to the Constitution last night, Mrs. Elliott, or whoever you are. Train those children so that they see it when it happens, they nail it, they name it, and they refuse to go along with it. The adults in this country have to realize that the preamble to the Constitution was written by people who know what they were doing. And they did a brilliant thing when they wrote that preamble. And what they did was they made us aware that this could happen in the future. All these things could be violated. And now we know that they can be, and they are being. It isn't just maybe this could happen. This is happening now.
Okay, so even though it's happening now, what do you think could be done to stop it?
I know what can be done to stop it. People have to get together and in groups, get into the streets, refuse to tolerate this business. When you see him violating the preamble of the Constitution again, then you get your group together and you protest loudly and at length. That is your duty as a citizen of the United States of America to preserve this democracy. That is what we are here for. As adults, that's what we're here for. And we're here to educate students in such a way that they will recognize a tyrant, they will recognize a fool when they see one, and they will never, ever vote for somebody like the one we have in power right now, because they'll see the difference. We have done a bad job of educating people in the last 30 years. If we had done a good job of educating people, if we had insisted that they learn the preamble and that they analyze the kinds of things that are being said and done by the people who lead us, they will realize that we are being led right now by a person and his cohorts who do not believe in anything that's listed in the preamble to the Constitution.
Right. I agree. So how can educators integrate anti-racism into the classroom without resistance from institutions or parents?
So they're going to have resistance. You'll get used to resistance. But if you are telling the truth, and you can prove the truth by teaching true history instead of the history that says that so-called white males did all the inventing and discovering and exploring, and all the good things that were ever done on the face of the earth were done by white males. If you can convince children at an early age that, number one, there are no white males, there are no black males, we are all shades of brown, and we have been lied to all these years. If you can start at the kindergarten level and convince children of the truth, then we can there's a cure to racism, and it's education.
That's right.
If you lead people out of the ignorance instead of increasing their ignorance by lying in the classroom on a daily basis, we could do away with racism in 2 generations. And how I know this is because this past August, a few months ago, 10 of the people who were in the film The Eye of the Storm, that's a film that was made by ABC in my classroom in 1970. I ran my 3rd graders through the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise, and a film crew from ABC came and filmed it. Last August, 10 of those people, who are now 62 years old, called and asked me if I would come and talk to them at their class reunion. I said, well, yeah, but I won't do it. I will do it in the school where nobody else will be around, because people in Riceville don't like to know that I'm in town. That upsets them terribly. I said, if you want to do it, I said, if you want to do it on Sunday, there'll be nobody around. We'll do it in the school. Absolutely, we'll do that. So those about 10 of them came to meet with me in that school. And I looked at them and I thought, oh my God, these aren't children. These kids, these are 62 years old. And they still want to talk about what they learned on the day of the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise. There was a film
Absolutely.
crew there. Yeah, there was a film crew there, and it was absolutely the most, and I get goosebumps talking about it, because what they said about that exercise and what they learned in room 10 when they were in my classroom was like, I couldn't, if I had scripted it, I couldn't have written a better script. And finally, one of the boys who was never supposed to graduate from high school because the other teachers couldn't teach him anything because he was dyslexic, looked up at me, this 62-year-old man, and said, "Mrs. Elliott, you taught us the truth." And I thought, thank you, thank you, thank you. That is exactly what you're supposed to do, is teach the truth. And if you teach the truth, you cannot teach that everything that was important was done on the face of this earth by pale, stale males.
That's right.
I'm sorry, but that's the way it is.
I'm only laughing because I like the way you say it. And every time I've ever heard you say it, I've laughed the same exact way.
But you see,
I really enjoyed watching you with T.I., right? I was watching you with. Go ahead.
Wait a minute. I heard that from a brown woman who met me at an airport in Chicago, Illinois, and she came in and we started to talk, and she said, "Well, you know how it is with pale, stale males," and I almost fell off my chair with delight. I said, "Can I quote you?" She said, "You can use that anytime you want to. That is not original with me. It was original." And there's something else, that isn't original with white folks. Jesus Christ.
That's right. Talk about it, man.
Was an Ethiopian Jew, and in the Bible he says he had kinky woolly hair and feet of bronze. Now I want you to go to wherever you worship, and if there's a picture of Jesus Christ there, I want you to fix that. And this next Christmas, when you go to look at the creche where the little Pillsbury Doughboy is in there to represent Jesus, I want you to get up what we call black doll and put that black doll in that creche and put a camera in the tree above it and watch people's faces as they see something other than a Pillsbury Doughboy in the manger representing Jesus. You see what we so-called white people do with Jesus, what we do with everything else. We come into a new environment and we immediately adjust the environment to fit our needs.
And weaponize it.
And when people of color come into a new environment, they immediately adjust their needs to fit the environment. So you have what we call little black boys trying to bleach their skin on a daily basis in this country because they know that you're better off if you look white. Do you see what we have done with children? And when some little boy comes into the classroom and that ignorant teacher says, "Oh, here's another little black boy," she should lose her job at that moment. She should lose her job because she is judging that kid on the basis of a physical characteristic over which he has no control. And if he goes and looks up the word black in the encyclopedia, in the dictionary, it will say vicious and evil. It will not say a respected group of individuals who have had to take on a title that is not real. No, it will say what white people want it to say.
Right, to fit whatever narrative that they create. So here's my next question. How do we challenge unconscious bias effectively in people who believe they are already woke?
Number one, it isn't unconscious bias. We didn't get that way by just magic. We take on those biases because they make us either better or worse than other people. I don't believe in unconscious bias. I believe in learned ideas that are wrong. I don't believe in my father learned quickly after I did the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise that his daughter, one of his daughters, was going to step on his tongue if he made racist statements. So he knew not to make racist statements. Now that means that the bias that he was carrying was conscious bias. And if you can stop doing it, then it's conscious bias.
So let me ask you, in order to do that though, right? To build this unconscious bias, you would have to have a whole bunch of people in agreement, right? So in order for this to happen, let's take a city like where I'm from. I'm from Philadelphia. I live in North Carolina now, but let's take a city like Philadelphia, for instance, right? How do we get Philadelphia on one accord to have this same mindset?
Just tell every woman and every person of color to take the day off in the middle of the week, Wednesday. Don't show up for work. This day, every person of color and every woman take the day off and watch pale, stale males try to make a dime. Watch them try, watch what happens to the wheels of progress if every woman and every person of color stayed home for a day. You think that couldn't happen? I think that would be such a rude awakening to those who think they know it all and they can tell us all what to do if they saw how little power they have when the rest of us decide we're going to take the power into our hands. And today, if you think we aren't worth anything, try to live a day without us.
Right. The power of the dollar is ours.
That's right. It's
So
ours. Yes.
what
Yes.
Mrs. Jane Elliott is saying is the definite truth. So I love your response to that.
Well, hey, you have to wait. You have to remember that only 15 to 18% of the human population of the earth is classified as white. That's why these pale, stale males are scared, because they know that we are not pale people, what we call white people, are not the numerical majority all over the world. We represent only 15 to 18% of the population of the earth. They're scared to death that they are going to lose what numerical majority they have in this country, and very shortly. And that's the reason they outlawed abortion, because they don't want white women to stop having babies. And that's the reason Donosaurus T. Rump closed Planned Parenthood clinics, because he was silly enough to think that all Planned Parenthood clinics offered was abortions to white women. Planned Parenthood clinics are absolutely valuable for a whole lot of things for women, not just abortions. And if a woman wants an abortion, she's going to get one no matter what she has to do to get it done. And we have a whole lot of women now who are gynecologists. And if a woman wants an abortion, she will get an abortion some way, whether or not Mr. Trump thinks she should.
Whether it's legal or not, and they just won't know.
That's right. They got them before when it was illegal, and they'll do it again. What I do with my body is my business. You take care of yours now. And here's the answer to abortion. Instead of punishing a woman for having an abortion, what we ought to do is find out what male contributed to that abortion, and say to that white male, if you contribute to an unwanted pregnancy, then you must submit to involuntary vasectomy so that you can't contribute to another unwanted pregnancy. Now, the positive part of that is vasectomies are reversible. You can have that vasectomy reversed so that you can have a baby when you want one.
You can have C-sections reversed as well. It just costs.
Right. Hey, if you want to put a stop to abortion, all you have to do is convince men, instead of making women responsible for the whole thing, make men partially responsible and say, if you contribute to an unwanted pregnancy, you must submit to involuntary vasectomy so you can't do it again. I think men would think twice before they contributed to an unwanted pregnancy.
I agree to a degree. I think it makes sense. So
thank you very much.
Here's my next question. What role does language play in shaping how we think about race?
Words are the most powerful weapon devised by humankind. We use words to put people in their place from the moment they wake up in the morning until the moment they go to bed at night, and they even hear these ugly words in their dreams. Words, we've got to use words in a better way in the future, because if we don't, we're going to replicate the past. You cannot create a decent future if you're going to use the words that were used in the past.
Okay, that's right. So, what is the most common misconception people have about racism?
That you were born that way. We're just born that way, and God made us this way. So God made us this way, so we have to be. We didn't want to be. This is God's plan for us. Well, there's a word that you use if you've been a farmer's daughter that begins with B. And if you recognize it when you see it, and I do, bullshit. I recognize it. I recognize it when I see it, when I hear it, and when I smell it. And when people say to me, well, God made me this way. No, God didn't make you this way. You learned to be a fool.
Yes, you have to learn that racism. People are taught to be racist.
Absolutely.
You're not inherently racist from the time you're born. Because I've seen this plenty of times. I've literally seen a racist have a granddaughter, and that grandchild plays with the black kid, and they don't see color like the racist sees it, and it had them furious. I even had a friend of mine who was racist until I swayed that. He had this perception of me, and then once he got to know me, his whole perception changed. And I think conversation and dialogue changes that a whole lot for a lot of people.
Oh, and there's something else that does. My father said to us as children, you can't judge a book by its cover, or a man by the color of his skin. But he also said to us girls, don't bring any pickaninnies into my house as grandchildren. And then my daughter married a Saudi Arabian. And we took their beautiful little girl, to my parents' home to see him. And I put that gorgeous little child, baby, in my father's arms. And he looked at that kid and he said, it's the most beautiful baby I've ever seen. And then, he was a farmer. He looked up at those two people, that Saudi Arabian man and that Anglo-American woman, and he said, that's a good cross. Now, my father was a farmer. He raised cattle and hogs and chickens and pigs, and he knew a good cross when he saw one. And he looked up at those two young people and said, that's a good cross. After that, you couldn't tell a racist joke around him. He'd tell you it was racist, or he'd get up and go in the other room. He wouldn't put up with it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like your dad was an awesome man.
My dad was an absolute awesome man. That's exactly what he was. He was a man from the age of 18 until 80 when he died. And he was the most honest man I've ever known in my life.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I took the first film that was made of my kids doing the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise up and showed it to my mother and my father, just the three of us alone in the room. And I ran that film for him of those kids going through that exercise. And when it was over, that 60-year-old man stood up in his bib overalls, took a red handkerchief out of the back pocket of his bib overalls, blew his nose, wiped his eyes, and said with a choked voice, I wish somebody had taught me that when I was 9 years old. His life would have been better if he had learned at 9 years old that you do not judge people on the basis of physical characteristics over which they have no control. If he had learned that at 9, he would have been an even more exemplary person than he was without knowing that. But he knew that after the age of 60. And after the age of 60, he wouldn't tolerate racist remarks being made in his presence.
That's right. That's awesome. So, you're from Iowa, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a bit. Let's talk about what Iowa was like back then growing up. Was it a heavily racist state, or
it was no more racist than any other Midwestern state, but we had the people who became governors and senators and members of the House of Representatives at that time were much less racist and vicious than the ones that they're electing now, which says that Iowa has gone backward instead of forward in the last 8 years. And that is a tragedy.
Oh, that's awesome.
That has become
it's awesome. It's awesome to know the history, is what I'm saying. It's not awesome that it was like that, but
Iowa has become a red state, and we have what is one of the worst governors in the United States.
So, in the digital age, how has social media affected discussions on race?
Social media could have solved the problem. But what you're forgetting is, when you're talking about social media, racism is an extremely lucrative project. We make a lot of money on racism. You can hire people or force people to work at wages far below what that job is worth because of the ignorance of racism.
Right.
Racism has been used in this country to make money for the last about 400 years.
Mm, mm, mm.
Yeah.
So we know that this is a construct that was purposely done so that, you know, the white race could have more. So let's talk a bit about reparations. What do you feel as though reparations will look like for us?
Reparations look like, for me, reparations look like giving the first people of color who came from Africa to this continent back their land and try to repair what we did by killing them because they didn't look the way we thought they should. Now,
Yes,
if
they got rid of generations of people. Absolutely. And same for us. Same, you know.
Wait, what? You are one of the first generations of people. The first people that Christopher Columbus met when he got here, he called them Indians because he thought he had reached India. He was going to reach the east by sailing west. He thought he had reached India. So these people must be Indians. They weren't Indians. They were people who had been on this land for 15,000 years, and they came from Africa.
That's right.
First Native Americans, who we call Native Americans, came from Africa to these shores. Nobody wants to admit that because nobody learns that, but you have, oh God, I get really disturbed when people say, well, they're all Indians, you know. No, they aren't. They are people whose ancestors came from Africa. Modern human beings evolved in Africa about 300,000 years ago. And several 100,000 years after those people appeared in Africa, they managed to populate every landmass on the face of the earth. Every landmass on the face of the earth was originally inhabited by and populated by people from a country on the continent of Africa. Now, there were some other humanoid types here when those Africans got here, but they managed to outsmart, outlive, and out-reproduce every one of those other humanoid types, so that every person on the face of the earth today, if you want to know where you came from, take your DNA back as far as you can, and you'll find that some of your DNA came from a country on the continent of Africa. That's the reason we're all shades of brown, because we all came from the same place. It's time for us to teach the truth about Columbus. He didn't know where the devil he was, and he called those people who were here Indians because he didn't know any better.
Right.
Does this make sense to you?
It does make sense to me because I never really believed that, you know, Indians were the original people of this land, because Africa was the first place where life existed.
It's
the motherland.
It's a place.
This is why they call it the motherland, you know?
Yes,
so,
but you see, I had a boy, a fool, call me a couple of weeks ago and say, you don't know what you're talking about. The people from Europe went and civilized the continent of Africa, and we populated that continent with people who look like us. And I finally said, you know, you're a fool, don't you? I don't have to listen to that. I said, you're right, you don't. And I hung up. Because nobody is going to tell me that people from Europe are the ones who populated Africa. And if they did, I want to know how they managed to survive with all that light skin in that sunny place. See, it doesn't make any
very
sense.
hot.
Yeah, what we're teaching doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense at all.
Right. Here's my next question. What advice do you have for young activists trying to make a real impact?
Well, the advice I have for all people is, if you want your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren to survive in this time of climate change, pale, stale people, find someone of color to mate with. That's it. Because we are all one race. We are all one color group. We are all shades of brown. But the browner you are, the safer you're going to be, and the longer you're going to live during this climate change, because the more protection your skin is going to have from the rays of the sun, because you need more melanin in your skin to protect yourselves from the damaging rays of the sun. Now, we pale faces don't have that, don't have nearly enough of it, and melanoma doesn't stay on your skin. It's a cancer that you get from having too little melanin in your skin. Melanoma doesn't stay on your skin. It travels to your kidneys and your liver and other parts of your body. So if you want to stay alive in the future, and you want your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren to stay alive in the future, have them reproduce with someone who has the proper coloration for them to exist. It's
Right.
as simple as that.
Right. So tell me a moment where you felt like your work truly made a difference.
When my father said, I wish somebody taught me that when I was 9 years old.
Oh, that's awesome.
After that, when some psychologist says, you shouldn't have done that horrible thing to those poor little children, I say, wait a minute. Those poor little so-called white children had that for one day for the brownies and one day for the blueies. And I say to a group of students, how many of you who consider yourselves black would like to have just one day of being treated unfairly and then being treated fairly the rest of your life? Every one of them raised their hand. Every one of them raises their hand because that sounds like heaven to them. To have it for just one day and then never have it again, that didn't do those kids a damage. That taught those little white children something about how it feels to be other than white in this country, and it taught them not to ever treat someone badly because of the color of their skin, because the color of their skin isn't the problem. Your ignorance is your problem.
The ignorance is definitely a problem.
And if the school doesn't teach in a way that you do not harbor that ignorance, if it doesn't, then the school should be closed. And that is exactly why a whole lot of charter schools should be closed, because they are deliberately starting charter schools so that the parents with money can send their children to a school where they will not be exposed to children of color.
So let's talk about the most transformative conversation you've ever had on race with someone that you've met. You have any story to tell us about that and how it impacted a person or changed them?
Oh, I've been doing this for 57 years, and I have never had a conversation with a person that we call black that wasn't absolutely mind-blowing and educational. I've never met someone who was black, who didn't know more about racism, and who had forgotten more about racism since breakfast than I will ever learn. Every conversation that I have with a person of color is another learning experience, because I am so ignorant and they are so knowledgeable, and they are not allowed to speak about it to somebody else. I encourage them to talk because I need to know. There are so many things that I've read thousands of books, literally, but I can't learn from a book what that young black woman or that young black man tells me about what happens to them on a daily basis. There's no way I can read that. I can read it in a book. I can see it at the movie. But when that young person or that older person stands in front of me and says, Mrs. Elliott, I want you to know what it is like for me when I get the opportunity to hear you say that it's all right not to be white.
That's right. That's right. You know, and as a black man, I can say myself, you know, I've had it hard throughout my life. I'm 42. I'll be 43 in July, Lord willing, if God permits it. But I will say, as a black man, I have felt racism many, many times. And I can remember as young as 9 years old where I've experienced racism. There was a part of Philadelphia where it was like all white people would live, and then there was another part where we would live. And this was like the Penrose area or whatever. And my mom would take me to this diner. She took us to this diner, but every time we were in this diner, we were looked at crazy, or it just felt so uncomfortable, you know. And I didn't really like going to this place like that, but you know, my mom liked to eat there because the food was good. So, you know, what could I do? I was 9 years old at the time, you know, but as I grew older, you know, it has changed over the years. It wasn't like that anymore. So that's a good thing. And that's the plus. Philadelphia is very integrated. And I love that about my city.
Are you telling me there are no restaurants in Philadelphia where a black person feels unwelcome?
Well, I feel like there might be a few, but it might be a few. Like I said, it might be a few, but you know, the way things are going now, you might have an Irish pub or like the Irish pubs or something like that still. But overall, excuse me, Overall, not really. It changed a whole lot, and
You
I
watch.
think
You
that
watch.
was a positive.
Watch what happens in the next 5 years. You're going to watch Philadelphia go back to where it's going to be worse than it was when you were 9 years old.
Well,
Because
yeah, I
right
see things. He's trying to shift things a bit. You know, things are going to shift a bit, and I probably
shift a bit.
I believe that things that he's trying to shift things back to an era in time where things were segregated.
No, not where things were segregated, where things were good for him. Those were the good old days. And that's what Ronald Reagan said, the good old days when we had things right, when we had things white. This is what
or
this
like
man
he
wants.
said, when you can knock them over the head and nothing was done. And then they said, who are you talking about? And then he just act like he didn't hear the question.
Or you could know that a number of so-called Native American girls, young girls, disappear every year and are never looked for on the reservation. Where that can happen in this country on a daily basis now, and it is happening. Where children of color are denied the basic human rights in this country on a daily basis. And where we deny that they're being denied.
Right. So here's my next question. Okay. Do you believe the government has a moral obligation to provide reparations for the descendants of enslaved people? Why or why not?
I believe the government has the responsibility to provide reparations for the first people of color who came to this country first. And then after we have closed the reservations and allowed and given those people, those brown-skinned people, back what they had when we got here, then after we do that, then perhaps we will have enough money left to give reparations to those we brought here as slaves. But interestingly enough, some of those so-called white people who brought those people here as slaves didn't even realize that in the beginning, those white people were brown, just as brown as the people they were bringing. Their ancestors were as brown as the people we were bringing here as slaves. It is just so interesting to me that today, 2025, you can still ask a group of people, you can still say to a group of people, well, every person in this room who considers himself or herself white, or if you consider yourself white in this room, please stand. And every one of those people will stand because they still believe in the lie of whiteness. This is 2025. We should know better by now. Every one of those people should sit right where they are and refuse to stand. But oh, no, no, no. It is a good thing to be called white. It is what our self-image is based on, and it's based on a lie. Now, if you're going to continue to use the language, the vernacular of the 1500s, then you males must come to work wearing knee breeches and powdered wigs and shoes with little rosettes on the toes.
And talk like that.
Hey, and all the women must wear clothes that are so tight that your waist isn't more than 18 inches around. And you must give up all modern forms of transportation and communication. If you're going to use the language of the 1500s, use the other things that were available to you in the 1500s. If you tell people that, all of a sudden it's like, well, let's change the language. Yeah, I'll go for that. Let's change the language. Let's stop calling white people white and black and start calling them members of the family of man, all of which originated on the continent of Africa and were shades of brown. Let's do that.
Yeah, I think, are you familiar with the show The Handmaid's Tale?
What?
Are you familiar with the show called The Handmaid's Tale?
I read that before you were born.
But did you ever see the show?
I haven't seen. I don't have to see the show to know what happened in The Handmaid's
Tale. Yeah, you read the book though, so right, so you know.
Yeah.
I think that's like a time that they would really feel like they would want to bring it back to, and the way things are evolving for people, I don't think it'll happen because people will stand up and fight before they allow that to happen.
Prove it that people will stand up and fight.
Well, the reason I say that is because you have people like myself. I would stand up and fight.
And how many of you are there?
I mean, I feel like, you know, we could assemble if we organized and got right, you know. People, and that's the key. That's the key.
If
People
we
need to organize and get right, you know.
if we organize, but the most important word there is if. If I had been born a boy, my mother would have loved me more, but I wasn't.
I heard that saying.
So try not to use if. Try here's something you
When
do.
I'll say when.
Wait a minute. Do you see the books on the shelf behind me? You see the one that says On Tyranny? See that book that's entitled On Tyranny right there?
Yes.
Everybody should get a copy of that book. It won't take you but an hour to read it. You should read that book, 20 Lessons We Learned from the 20th Century. Read that book and then get the book that's on the other side of me, On Freedom. Read that. Timothy Snyder has written 2 books that tell you how to solve this problem. But first you have to educate the people. And if the schools won't do it, you have to do it for yourself. And then get the book book that's black right there, that one that says White Evangelical Racism. Get that book and read it. Educate yourselves so that in the future, when somebody says one of these ridiculous things, you can say, wait a minute. I read this book and it says, and that blows people away because most people don't want to read now. Most of us are screen addicted. We are so used to learning things off the television or our handheld computers that we don't want to take the time to read a book. So,
and this is why they're banning books, because they know there's a lot of wisdom in the books, and people honestly would rather trust Google when Google isn't even that old to begin with. They'll trust Google before reading a book, and for me, that's a little heinous. But
the problem with that is when you read a book on your net, on your computer, or on your iPad, or on your cell phone, you don't get the chance to underline the words that you need to remember, and then or turn down the corner of the page so that later you can find that page with the corner turned down and know that there's something valuable there that you want to remember. You can't do that very easily with your handheld computer. So it's time for people to get used to picking up a book. And if I remember when I was doing my student teaching, my critic teacher was a woman named Hazel Grant, and she was also the principal in the building. And that was time when the communist scare was going, 1953. And a group of people decided that they were going to take all the books out of the classroom libraries that preached communism. So a group of people came into Mrs. Grant's room, and I was there, and they said, we're going to go through your library, the shelves of your library, it's your 3rd grade library, and take all the books out and put them on the top shelf so that these are the books the children shouldn't read. She said, okay, go ahead, because they were her boss. After all, they paid her wages with their taxes. So they went through all the books, and they piled a bunch of them up on the top of the shelf, and they said, there, now those are the books that the children shouldn't read. She said, thank you very much. And she led them to the door. She ushered them out the door. She closed the door behind them. Then she turned to us, who were student teachers, and said, put those books back on the shelves and let's get back to work. And that's what we did. We put the books back on the shelves and we got back to work. That's what teachers should do. When somebody comes to your classroom and you say, we want to go through your library, first thing you have to say is, do you have a library science degree? Do you have an education degree? Are you elected to do this job? Because if you're just a parent in the school system, I don't believe that you are educated or trained enough to decide what all these children should be learning. And if you touch one of those books belong to the whole community. If you try to take one of those books, I'll call the police, because that will mean that you're stealing from the books in this building that belong to everybody in the community.
Absolutely.
We've got to be,
awesome.
We've got to say, you're not going to do this to me. You're not going to burn books. You're not going to get away with this, because I believe in the preamble to the Constitution, which says we will secure the blessings of liberty on ourselves and our posterity. And my students have the right to read all those books, whether or not you approve of them.
I agree with that. And I think that, having books is very important, and, knowledge is power, even though that's very cliche, but it's the truth. The more knowledge you obtain, and the Bible speaks of this, a man with knowledge can go very far. A man or woman with knowledge can go very far. But
some knowledge is absolutely not knowledge. But my dad used to say to us, Don't go to bed at night until you learn something new during the day. Every day you should learn
Absolutely.
something new. And if you haven't learned something new, get a book, get a magazine, get the newspaper. Don't turn on the television, but find something new. Go to the dictionary, find a word that you never learned before, and learn it, and then go to bed. And that's what he did. He read constantly. He just that was the model for our behavior.
So let's go back to bounce back a bit and talk about the reparations, right? You know, some argue that slavery was too long ago to talk about reparations today. What's your perspective on people that say that? How do you combat that sentiment or statement?
I think if you're going to give reparations, you have to give reparations to the first people whom we enslaved, and those are the people whose homes we invaded, whose land we invaded, whose land we stole, and the people that we killed because of the color of their skin. I think you have to start with reparations there.
So what do you think the U.S. can learn from other countries that issue reparations like Germany or South Africa?
I think after watching Lone Scum. Lone Scum is a person who is an immigrant here from South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
If he is indicative of the way all people that we call white in South Africa behave, we're in big trouble. Because you can forget about reparations, you can forget about the preamble to the Constitution, you can forget about justice, and you can forget about truth. So if you're going to have reparations, you're going to have the kind of people who believe in the truth. And you aren't going to have reparations as long as you deny the fact that the first people who came to this land came from Africa.
Mm. Mm.
And they didn't come here as slaves. They came here as explorers. They came here as people who were brilliant enough to make that voyage without any modern technology. That would be a reparation if we could admit to ourselves that they were here before we got here and they didn't need people from Europe to tell them how to live.
So how do you respond to those who argue that current social programs like affirmative action and welfare are already an act of reparations or a form of reparations?
One of the reasons he wants to get rid of those things is because they represent to him reparations. He wants to get rid of those things. You know that as well as I do. He has no intention to promote the general welfare. He has no intention to secure the blessings of liberty on ourselves and our posterity. He has only the intention to make himself more wealthy and to make people who look like him more wealthy and to reproduce more people who look like him.
So what do you say to those that say, oh, he's going to help people who own business that aren't wealthy too? What do you say to that?
They're wrong. Look at what he's trying to do right now. He's going to take over Canada. Think about how ignorant this man is. He's going to make Canada the 51st state? Do you realize what he is saying when he says that? He wants.
It sounds like he wants to take over a bit.
His ignorance is monumental. It's hard to imagine a man who is 78 years old who is as ignorant as that man is.
Out of touch.
42% of the Republican Party voted for him. 42% of the Republican Party voted for this man. This is the man who knocked the letter L out of the word Republican and turned it into Republican because of his obsession with the pubic area.
Ms. Jane, I love your jokes. I love them.
I'm not joking. I'm absolutely serious about it.
I know you're serious. I know you're very serious.
And you have to realize that we no longer have a Supreme Court. You have to call it the United States Sperm Court because the members that he put on that court are only interested in sperm cells and what color children they will produce. And I'm not joking. I'm absolutely suitable. You can laugh at it, but look again. We're going to put a wall on the southern border of the United States to keep those brown-skinned people out of here because brown-skinned people reproduce too rapidly. That's what he said before he built that wall that he said Mexico was going to pay for.
So do you think white Americans could ever fully support reparations? Or will opposition always be a roadblock?
I think, number one, you've got to stop referring to people as white.
Right.
Once you refer to people as shades of brown, all of a sudden, those what you call white are going to relate to people who are also shades of brown. So maybe we aren't so different.
The lighter shaded people. I'm gonna say that.
maybe we should treat them fairly, since we're all members of the family of man.
We are all the same race, and we are the human race. I agree with you there, and I do believe that we are different shades, but we are all the same race. We all bleed the same. We all go to sleep the same. We all have the same organs. So we are all the same in that sentiment, and God made us all the same for His purpose and not our own.
Wait a minute. Are you sure God is a he?
Well, that's for another conversation. But
I got kicked out of the Methodist Church in Osage, Iowa, because the minister came out and said, "Mrs. Elliott, could you find another place to worship on Sunday morning?" I said, "Well, sure I could. Why would I do that?" "Because my parishioners don't like the words you use in the service." I said, "You don't like it when I call God she?" "No, they don't." "Well," I said, "God is a spirit and has neither color nor gender."
Well,
most of the books in the Bible, wait a minute, most of the books in the Bible were written by men. So it is told from the man's point of view. And so is history, written by men, because women weren't allowed to get educated and they weren't allowed to be published.
Interesting take. That's all I'll say on that.
Okay. My earpods are losing their energy, so we're going to have to stop.
All right. Well, it was nice to have you on.
Wait. There's one thing more you have to know. Remember, these three things you have to remember. Without what we call blacks, there would be no what we call whites. All white people are is black people who faded, and then none of them started out black. They're all shades of brown. Without what we call black, there would be no what we call whites. Number two, without Jews, there would be no Christians. That's a fact. And number three, without women, there would be no men. And that's a fact. If we could get rid of anti-Semitism,
and without men, there would be no women. So it's the same.
They have proven, and we know, that you can put two female mammal cells, eggs, together in a petri dish, break down the cell walls, combine those cells, and come up with another female mammal.
Well, that's a mammal, but it's not the same for humans.
No, humans are mammals.
Yes, we are mammals, but I'm saying as far as the way our DNA system works, that has not proven to work yet. As far as a female and another female.
Did you ever hear of the Amazons? Look up the Amazons and find out how they reproduced, and you might find out that you're wrong about that.
I'll take a look into it.
Take a look into it and say goodbye now.
All right, so what's your third thing? You said two things. You have one more thing.
I said without blacks, there'd be no whites. Without Jews, there'd be no Christians. And without women, there'd be no men.
Okay, that is three. All right. So Miss Jane, Mrs. Elliott, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate your presence. And I hope to have you on again on my other show, Stirring the Pot, and we can stir and talk a bit more. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me, and I hope your people learn something new. Just those last three. If they can remember those last three, we can change the world.
All right. You have a great day.
Enjoy
the rest of your day. And I will email you later on so we can talk later, okay?
All right. Goodbye now.
All right. Bye-bye now. Hey, folks, there you had it. The legendary Jane Elliott. She was here. She spit some game at y'all, I like to have people come on and say their differences and opinions because, first of all, she's a legendary educator and activist and teacher. And what she has taught many people about racism is awesome. I think that she has been a great leader in helping change how people view race. And that's needed in this country because we're better together than divided. And through the grace of God, things have gotten better. But as things change, because things do change throughout time, and as we see this administration come in, things are already changing a bit. They will change. We have to be more united as a front. So that's what I'm here to say with that. But at the end of the day, God controls it all, and he has the plan, not us. I like her take on that God is a she, but, you know, in my eyes, from what the book says, God is a he. But, folks, I want y'all to understand what we're doing here. And it's just bringing all different types of people on. Different views, different, opinions, different thoughts. And we share them. This is what the pot is about. It's centered in hip hop, but it's also other things and other topics. So this is why I decided to do this today for Community Week, starting the Monday off right. I hope you guys enjoyed and stay tuned for the next time. So with that being said, it's your boy. I'm out. I'm going to play 2 music videos to close it. And y'all be safe. God bless.
Thank you for joining us and wonderful, wonderful audience we have here today. Now, we have Grandma Diva who has a message for her dear granddaughter Promise, and she wants Promise to understand what she's trying to say. You know the motto that we always tell people as, we're the elders. You do as we say, not as what we did. Don't follow our mistakes. We don't want you to make the same mistakes that we made. So guess what? Promise is going to have an exercise, and that exercise will be for her to write a song. And believe it or not, Promise has chosen to write a song on how he slid. He slid. That is what she wants to talk about. Woo! I am his side. You know what? You need to go to church talking girl and he said put yourself really want me. In comparing yourself with some country chicken. Talk he about likes all this. He ain't want what he had at home. Promise I ain't raised I know like you ain't raised me like that. But he wanted all of this, Grandma. He gonna have to come I see can't me. Help it. If she couldn't take care of her man at home, that ain't got nothing to do with me. Jesus ain't got nothing to do. Got nothing to do with me. It got nothing to do with me, Grandma. Damn fool. Because somebody said something. You know what? We was all the victims. She come on this show and she bop. We was the victims. He ain't saying that. But Promise ain't no victim. She not. You out here comparing yourself to a steak and some goddamn chicken tenders at Popeyes. I ain't some 2-piece, 4-piece. Her man slid. You know what? You need to go to church instead of put yourself, Grandmama, in You want to slide?
Yeah.
So I can climb the beanstalk. I might let you slide. Wrap your form husband on. That's all I'm trying to tell my grandmama. I didn't break up his home. His home was broke up. His home was already over. Everything was out of the way when I met him. I didn't come in and tear the shit up. I ain't tear it up. It ain't my fault. Ain't nobody tell him to allow his tallywag. He should have just told the truth to all the women and let them make a decision. But see, then he had done got caught up with this one, that one, this one, that one, da. Yeah, he got caught up with all of them. And then at that point, they all made a decision. Some wanted to stay, some wanted to leave. Some wanted to stay, some wanted to leave. I chose to stay. He chose. That's what it is. He chose. Bottom line, you happy? I'm happy. He slid, your man slid.
About 1:15 p.m., Southeast Patrol officers responded to the 100 block of Manchester Avenue for a robbery that just occurred. When they arrived, they found a male suffering gunshot wounds, and that male was then transported to the hospital.
I done made it out the struggle, I done made it out of my streets. I had days I seen brains on the concrete. I had days I came out and wasn't trying to speak. I had pain that remains under my feet. I had the rain switching lanes, old body. See me with her, ask me if I hit her, it's a probably. Catch a girl freak, I'm used to hit them in the alley. Biggest in the room, you ain't even in the lobby. Back streets raised me, I'm a backstreet baby. I got that roll call with the street lights, niggas play me. I got niggas think I'm crazy, I got bitches think I'm wavy. I got mom dukes looking at me saying I got lazy. I got shit I gotta do, and there's ones I gotta do it for. I gotta make shit safe, run a corner store. I gotta make shit straight for the young boys. Keep them out the streets and out the reach of these dumb boys. Shit don't make sense, I'ma make moves. I'ma make hits like I'm Babe Ruth. We gon' take your chick out the Chris roof. I mean roof Chris, eat the cake too. This for all my brothers in them state boots. Miss you niggas, ain't no one that can replace you. To all the ones that's gone and feel like I done failed you. Survivor's guilt is real, that day when I tell you. I'm thankful, I thank every moment that I ever had with who ain't here. I pray to God daily that we make it through the years. Tell them, man, I'm grateful, I'm great. I'm greater than the hate that I'm getting thrown in my ear. No matter what they say, I'ma make it up out of here. We made it out of where they say they never make it out of. It's homicides, the news ain't always gotta say about it. They taking souls until they souls is getting taken out of them. They pride is high, they say they'll do it, I don't even doubt them. Yeah, I try to stand, they thinking mine clear. Tell them my clearing, it still ain't no fearing. Yeah, you done, but you ain't out of it, ain't over. You the definition of a soldier. I'm thankful, I thank every moment that I ever had with who ain't here. I pray to God daily that we make it through the years. Tell them, man, I'm grateful, I'm great. I'm greater than the hate that I'm getting thrown in my ear. No matter what they say, I'ma make it up out of here.
Everybody know what's happening with the pop.
Y'all tune into the Pop Podcast And guess what? There's an episode of me on
and you are tuned into the Pot Podcast.
With the Pot Podcast with my boy Tigmatic. You hear me? It's going down.
To follow the Pot Podcast with Tigmatic.
That's that number one.
That's that number one.
They really wanna take me out the game, I